Indeed. Welcome to the program. I'm Stan Houston. This is the Creator Entrepreneur Podcast. It's ideas, it's influence, it's impact, and income. How do you put the four all together? And that's what we're all about. And our title today, what does Tucker Carlson know about podcasting that probably you should know too? And why you might want to join him. Let's talk about that. The program begins right now.
Come and listen in to the radio station where the mighty host of heaven sing. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on.
Well, upon the death of Rush Limbaugh, those people who care about talk radio, and particularly the conservative wing of talk radio, are wondering who might be the next Rush Limbaugh, the one who could dominate perhaps the entire field of people. Well, I can tell you from my experience, Rush was the traditional and the atypical, and he really can't be duplicated, and that was on purpose. He very much knew that he had to be extremely and almost outrageously different. And he didn't ask anybody to change for him, and he wouldn't change for anybody. He was going to do the show. Literally in Frank Sinatra style, he was going to do it his way. And he probably won't be duplicated in any significant way, and nobody will probably have the influence he had in any way. However, someone who has somewhat been mentioned as kind of a spokesperson type is the man who is obviously very well known on the cable news channel, particularly the Fox channel. His name is Tucker Carlson, and he has the prime spot at 8 p.m. on the Fox News channel, which of course is the dominant channel of the other news channels like CNN, MSNBC, and the like that. So, Tucker has announced that not only is he going to do a daily Monday through Friday television program, which obviously is incredibly successful. He's one of the top people in that. 3, 4, 5 million people watch, listen, participate in his program every evening. He's the top guy. And obviously he has an incredible amount of influence and impact in some ways, and boy, is he making the income. But why then is he announcing that he will do some documentaries and they will be commercial free on the internet channel which people must subscribe to? Now think about that. And that he's thinking about doing a podcast just like this. Now, why would he want to do that when he has a great, wonderful television show? Well, may I suggest, because I don't know at all, he's never said, and I don't know if he ever will. And I could be wrong, but for you, and based on my almost half-century of experience in radio, perhaps I can give you some ideas of why he might be doing it. Okay, here we go. Number one, it's interesting that we oftentimes say, people like me, I have a face made for radio. Sure, you get the joke. Well, Tucker obviously doesn't have a face made for radio. He's a good-looking guy, and he is perfect for the television. So why would he want to have a radio program? Well, first of all, what Tucker probably knows is that radio tends to be much more of a personal, more of an intimate medium. Most people who are watching Tucker on the TV or watching anybody on TV has a sense that they're in the audience. Whereas people on the radio, now don't ask me to explain all of the things that go into it, and the reason is because we oftentimes don't know. But it seems that our experience is that people have much more of a feeling that you are talking just to them. It's remarkable. Now, when I was on the radio, and people may have seen me, they certainly heard me, and they may have seen pictures of me, at some of the publicity, where I could be walking down a street or coming out of a store or with my family, and somebody would run up to me and they'd introduce themselves and say, "Oh," and they would almost do it as if they thought that I should know them. Well, they know me. And somehow our relationship had grown to the point where they had somehow got the idea that since I had talked to them for some time, I must know them too. It is a very strange dynamic, but radio with the voice and a little bit of what we call the close microphone, where the voice can modulate and cause more of an effect, is much more of a personal medium. As a result of that, your impact and your influence goes and grows. Your personal influence. Now, on TV, you very seldom get away with it just being you. Like Rush Limbaugh used to say, is I don't usually have guests because I'm usually better than them. Now, he was putting people on in some respect, because he himself, that was part of his shtick and part of his pitch. But he actually knew that he could have a greater following if people just heard from him and his point of view and the things that he believed in. They truly were not followers of the program or viewers of the program. They were followers of Rush. A much more intimate and influential medium. And I think Tucker probably knows that. And if he has other ambitions separate from whatever he's doing now, the fact that he could cultivate and perhaps have a following of him on whatever channel or whatever medium that he wanted to could be very powerful for him. Secondly, I think he knows this, that obviously he is limited when you are on somebody else's channel, the Fox News channel. They're the boss. They have a considerable amount of control over you, and how much they may exercise that, who knows? Nobody ever admits that it happens, but it does happen. And different people have different limits on what they can or cannot do. And what I think Tucker knows is that the podcast medium is so much cheaper to do. As I say, all you need is what I have. A microphone that may cost you $100 and a laptop and a few dollars worth of software, and you are on the radio all around the world. And so that will give him a lot more ability to say and do and be what he truly wants to be. And he's not limited by the fact that the commercial has to come on, or that he only has an hour, or he has certain time spaces he has to observe or fill. He can be as short or as long or as personal as he wants to be. I think he knows that. And I think he knows that could be good for him and his ability to influence other people. So, first of all, as I said, I think he knows the intimacy and the immediacy and the fact that people will more and more bind and bond and feel a follower of you, and the fact that he will have more freedom to say and speak and do what he wants to do. I think he knows that, and that's very, very important. But there's something else, and just give me a moment, and we'll come back to that. You are in tune with this podcast, which you can learn how to do yourself and Maybe you can be the next Tucker Carlson, or at least compete with him. By the way, he will not have so much of an advantage in terms of the technology that you can have. He just simply has a little bit more influence, but you can do what he will be able to do too. We have what it takes, and we call it What It Takes Radio, and we can do that just for you too. So you reach out to me, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com, and say, Stan, I want to be on the radio. I want to do a podcast like you and like Tucker and like a lot of other people who are making their mark. Would you teach me how to do it? Would you help me do what it takes to make it happen? And you know what? We can do just that. Okay. Now, there probably are a lot of reasons, and I may have gotten them wrong, but I think I'm pretty close to why Tucker wants to do podcasting as well as be obviously the host of a primetime television show. Number 3. First of all, are you aware that the FCC, which rules all of radio that is broadcast, regulates it, controls it, and you have to observe certain license requirements. Particularly, some stations are non-commercial. They can't have commercials. Many of your religious organizations or your ministry organizations or nonprofits, if they have a non-commercial radio license, that's pretty well limited. They are restricted on that, and they're restricted on what they can do in light of that. So be it, because as the FCC would say, the radio waves do not belong to them, they belong to the people. And that's as it should be. I subscribe to that perfectly. On the other hand, that's going to lead to some problems, because if people are going to try and control speech like they do on the internet, on the social media networks, like the crazy guys at Facebook and sometimes at Google and certainly at Twitter are trying to do, they could do that through government regulation. However, at the moment, the internet is not. It is what it is. It is the Wild West of the World Wide Web. Now, there may be restrictions later on, and I think there will be, just in terms of, obviously, the problems with some of the perversion and pornography that is on the internet. But for the most part, internet radio gives you an immense amount of freedom. And part of that freedom is that you can be on anytime. For instance, if you're on TV from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you're on from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And that's why they keep saying, why don't you record it? Why don't you record it? Why don't you record it? Because you could watch it some other time. Well, you don't have to worry about that. If you do a podcast, it's on all the time, every day. 24/7, it's there. And what you did a year, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years ago, it's still there. And what you are going to do in 3 and 4 and 5 years, you know that it continues on. And as a result, you can have much more influence because people can listen to you and be in touch with you anytime they want. They pick up their smartphone, they speak to their smart speaker and say, I'd like to hear Stan Houston, or what is Tucker's latest podcast? And there it is, on demand, just for you. And that's a very powerful thing. But at the same time, that allows you to do much more. You could read your book. You could very much do the marketing of you, your programs. Right now, I'm doing a whole series, which some of you ought to watch, is on how to pick you, how to market and platform you, how to program you. And as a result of that, you have a much greater chance not only of gaining a following, but of being able to have the books and the trips and the cruises, you know it, and the tours and all of the merchandise that's related to you. You have a much better chance of getting that into the marketplace and getting it into the hands of people who really care about it and who would be much more interested in it. So the podcasting gives you the great possibility, as I say, of selling you and selling your stuff and selling it well. Well, I think I've covered it, at least enough of it, for you to realize that maybe that's why Tucker Carlson is also going to do podcasting and truly be Tucker. He can say basically what he wants to say, and he probably will with even more power and emphasis, and is a personality pushing through. So that could be it. We will see when he does his deal. But this message was not just about Tucker. This message was for you. And we'll talk about that as we finish up. Thank you very much for listening. I want the privilege and the pleasure of helping you to be on the radio, to get your wisdom. As I say, I want you to be a twit. That's right, a teacher of wisdom, insight, and truth. You know there are a lot of foolish and fraudulent people on the radio and television. You know that. You've seen them. You've heard them. Well, we need you, because you're not like that. You're different. You have wisdom, insight, truth. You have a spirit. You are trying to help and serve people and not just serve yourself and brag about yourself and be self-important. We need you on the radio so that people who care, and it may not be a large audience of millions, but you don't need millions. You need 10, 20, 30. As I say, Jesus started with 3, 12, 70, and 120, and that's how he changed the world. So that you can do, not on the real radio, but certainly on the podcast radio. So I would encourage you to reach out to me. Once again, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. You need to be on the World Wide Web. You need to be a person who speaks your teachings of wisdom, insight, and truth, and your entertaining and fun and inspiring stories, and you need to put it into the world. Please do that. Please allow me to help you. Once again, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. Best and blessings, always. Best and blessings. And bye for now.